What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Fantasy Addiction Network. Today we're going to be breaking down the game between the St. Louis BattleHawks and the Houston Roughnecks in Week 2. Final score for this one, Roughnecks 28, BattleHawks 24. Hey, if you guys are looking for XFL fantasy content, news content, and recaps of the entire game, replays of every game every week, click that like and subscribe button. We're going to be posting stuff about the XFL every single day throughout the entire season, so make sure you're caught up on that. But anyway, I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's get started right now. Alright guys, so as I said, we are breaking down the Roughnecks and BattleHawks, and this was probably the most exciting game thus far on the entire season. Came down very close, which was, pretty good to see, especially after we had some poorer showings from teams on Saturday. This will definitely help continue to pique the interest in the XFL, and I think games like this are on the horizon that will happen more often as offenses start to gel and click a little bit more. This league didn't really have a preseason, so we were kind of expecting there to be a little bit of sloppy play for the first couple weeks, but look for more games like this to continue in the future. Now, overall, definitely a high-scoring game. There was plenty of defensive plays as well. If you guys didn't get a chance to check this game out, I actually posted an entire recap of this game where I cut out all of the dead space between plays, commercials, everything like that. Gets you the entire game in under 30 minutes. So if you are looking to watch this game, click the link in the description or the box above me, and you can watch that game in under 30 minutes. Now, let's break down these players' stats and go over a fantasy analysis for these players going forward. We'll start with the BattleHawks. Jordan Ta'amu, one of the little bit more undersung heroes from last week that looked really good. Philip Walker got a lot of the praise last week, and rightfully so, but Jordan Ta'amu looked great, and he had another really good showing here. 30 for 37, 81% completion percentage, 284 yards, and had 3 touchdowns on the day, also 2 interceptions, and he had 8 carries on the ground for 32 yards. So definitely a dual threat quarterback, if not, probably the best dual threat quarterback in terms of fantasy production that you will continue to see going forward. Just looks really composed and solid out there. The one interception was kind of bad. The second one was he thought it was a free play, and honestly it should have been. The Roughnecks guy had actually, one of their defenders had jumped over the neutral zone when they snapped the ball, so it should have been a free play. So he definitely kind of got shafted a little bit there, but overall still a very respectful day. Statistically, I think Jordan Ta'amu is definitely going to be a top 3 quarterback going forward, and definitely if someone has 2 quarterbacks, that's someone that you're going to want to trade for. All right, looking at the running backs here now, Matt Jones was one of the highest risers last week, and he definitely showed it again in this game. 16 attempts for 44 yards. Had a few, runs that he broke free for a decent amount of yards, but was also getting clogged up pretty early on. The Roughnecks have a pretty good defensive line. That's their strength of this defense. So they were able to slow down the run a good bit, but he also had 1 catch for 25 yards and a touchdown. So definitely a respectful fantasy day. He missed about half the game. He was dealing with a knee injury that he had kind of re-aggravated during the middle of the game, and he only played like 1 or 2 more plays after that. He did come back in, so that shows that it isn't too severe, but it definitely limited his production. Prior to him leaving the game, he was pretty much the primary ball carrier, and that's definitely something to note from a fantasy angle. Now, Christian Michael had come in after Matt Jones had left the game. He had 15 carries for 38 yards, and he also had 2 catches for 22 yards. He had 3 pretty decent plays, and the rest of the game looked pretty awful, but overall, definitely got some fantasy production. Still a name you're going to have to note with Keith Ford. Currently out with an injury. He's basically the only other guy there that's going to get any touches, so definitely a name to keep on your radar. Now, jumping over to the receivers in this 1A, 1B, 1C situation, looked like the 1A again was DeMornay Pearson L. 11 targets on the day, 9 receptions for 50 yards and a touchdown. Looked really explosive out there. He's going to see a massive boost in our trade tiers that we'll be posting tomorrow. LaDamian Washington, another player that I continue to tout even after a slower performance in week 1. 8 targets on the day, 6 receptions, 77 yards, and a touchdown. Also had the highest average yards per reception of all the wide receivers here at 12.8. definitely excited to have either of these guys on my team. They're going to be used a lot. And then Alonzo Russell still put up a respectable stat line, 5 for 42. No touchdowns on this one, but you're going to see this shuffle as the season goes on between Washington, Pearsonell, and Russell getting the majority of the work. I think Pearsonell is probably going to have the safest floor week to week, and we'll see Washington and Russell kind of bounce back and forth between who has the better day. Keith Mumphrey got a respectable workload in this one, 4 targets, 3 receptions for 39 yards, but I'm probably not going to be starting him as long as we have the big 3 in front of him. No one else really here to mention. Now, part of the reason why we had so much production amongst the wide receivers is that there really wasn't any production going on with the tight ends. Marcus Lucas, one of the biggest tight end pickups this week, only had 1 target for 14 yards. Pretty disappointing performance overall from him. I think he'll bounce back, but definitely something that is a bit scary if you had him starting this week. It's going to be hard to trust him until you see it again. And then Wes Saxton, 2 targets, 2 catches for 10 yards. Just gross performance from the tight ends here. Okay, let's jump over to the Houston Roughnecks. Now, Philip Walker is still maintaining that MVP campaign performance here. 20 completions on 31 attempts, so 65% completion rating. Only 170 yards on the day, but 3 touchdowns and no interceptions. Just, very commanding and just playing incredibly smart football right now. Also 4 carries for 27 yards. Just looks great out there. If he continues to play like this, there's no doubt in my mind that he'll be on an NFL team next year, which is really sad for the XFL, but I'm really excited for Philip Walker's future. I think he definitely looks like he has taken another step up in his game. So this was a really good battle between 2 of the better quarterbacks in the XFL. On the running back side, James Butler, who was our top waiver wire pickup last week, 7 attempts on the ground, 28 yards, and a touchdown. He was used as the primary goal line running back. Also had 2 receptions, but for -3 yards. So definitely lower production from last week, but still was the primary carrier here. Saw his value go up. Now, Andre Williams was used a little bit more this week, 5 carries for 12 yards, and no catches on the day. So hopefully you didn't start him because that's a pretty poor performance. Overall, this is James Butler's backfield. And then Nick Hawley, based on your league setting, he might be classified as a running back or a wide receiver. Definitely depends on where you're playing, but Nick Hawley had 1 carry for 11 yards, also had 5 targets, 3 receptions, and 41 yards. Respectable day for a backup running back. Okay, jumping over to the receivers now. Cam Phillips last week had 9 targets and 6 receptions. This week he had 10 targets and 8 receptions, 63 yards, and 3 touchdowns. If you played Cam Phillips this week, you probably won your game. If you played him in daily, you probably won some money. Cam Phillips is definitely on the playing tier of the top wide receivers in the league right now for fantasy, and unless Sammy Coates actually gets his act together, Cam Phillips will continue to stay there. Now, Sammy Coates had 4 targets on this game, only 1 catch for 8 yards. He had a drop, and he also had a catch where he would have had like a 40-yard touchdown, but he stepped out of bounds before he caught the ball and ended up giving them a flag. So just these weird little mishaps that you see his athleticism, you see his ability to dominate in this league. Like, he has the ability to basically burn any defender in this league, but he keeps just having these mental mistakes that you just can't help but wonder if he's trying to prove something to someone, or maybe he's just really trying to show that he can still play in the NFL, and it's just not working out for him right now. But you can't sell him at this point. I still think he has the potential to be like the best receiver from a fantasy perspective. Just really hard to trust starting him on your roster. So stow him on your bench until he can get his head straight. And then once you see a blow-up game, either sell him if you don't trust him or just start playing him from that point, because the blow-up game is coming. It just hasn't happened yet. Khalil Lewis also still looking really good out there. 7 targets, only 4 catches on the day, but 50 yards. No touchdowns because Cam Phillips stole them all. No one else here really to talk about from a receiver perspective. And again, Houston Roughnecks don't have any tight ends. Now, looking at both of these defenses, honestly, both of these defenses played really well considering the strength of the offenses of both teams. The Roughnecks have a very good defensive line, and forcing 2 interceptions on the day, they looked really good. Almost scored touchdowns on both of those interceptions. Got tackled right in the right before the end zone on both of those, so could have had a much better fantasy day. And I think brighter days are ahead for them because they get to play the Vipers next week. BattleHawks defense definitely played respectfully as well, but it's very hard to stop Phillip Walker right now. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're looking for rankings, trade advice, waiver advice, stats, everything you need to be able to manage your fantasy league, click that link in the description or go to fantasyaddictionnetwork.com and you can access my site for free. Throughout the season, we'll be keeping you up to date on everything happening around the XFL. If you want more content like this and other things about fantasy in the XFL, click that like and subscribe button. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.